everybody, this is Amanda from PerfectionismPrints, and I'm going to film a video today talking about my Getting Things Done or GTD inserts. This has been something that I've been meaning to do for weeks, but perfectionism is not only in the name of my shop, it is a very apt descriptor of me as a person. Perfectionism is the enemy of done, and I was just never ever going to get this video done if I was waiting for everything to be perfect. Let me just introduce myself a little bit. Again, my name is Amanda. I am a mother to two little boys who are 5 months old and 3, almost 4. I have a husband, Michael, and I'm a psychiatric physician assistant. I've been working as a psych PA for about 9 years now. And I love it. So that's a little bit about me. And I also love planning and stationery and organizing and being a little bit obsessive. So that has kind of brought me to this place. Anyway, so I just want to go through the GTD inserts and explain briefly what the Getting Things Done system is, and then how you can use my inserts to help you carry out that system in an analog way. The planner that I'm using right now, this is A5 rings. This is a Moterm Luxe, I think they're calling it. Let's get into this. First, I'm going to just kind of talk about GTD as a whole. So the Getting Things Done system was created by David Allen, and he has a lovely book about it. I am not claiming to be an expert on this system. I actually just started using it myself recently in an analog way. I have used it digitally in the past, but I prefer analog. But anyway, I'm sure there are plenty of things that I will leave out when I'm explaining this, or not get it right. I am not a GTD purist. I just kind of am familiar with the system and have tried to adapt it to my own life and what works for me. And that's kind of how I designed my planner inserts as well. So the idea of the system is that everybody, all of us, have all of these ideas in our heads, ideas, tasks we need to get done, projects, events coming up, all of this stuff. And it can get really overwhelming when you're constantly walking around with all of this in your head. David Allen calls it an open loop, when your brain is expending all of this energy thinking about all of these things, but it's doing it in a really inefficient way, because when it's just all up jumbled around in your head, you're not really organizing it in any meaningful way, and it's easy to forget things. Our memories are not always reliable. I think that it makes a lot of sense, this idea that we need to get the things that are in our heads that are important, that we want to remember, that we want to act on, and we need to get that down in some sort of organizational system. So now I'm going to talk a little about the Getting Things Done workflow. So this is the GTD workflow diagram that I have up in my shop. This is an adaptation of the one that David Allen has in his book. I simplified it a little bit and adapted it slightly for my purposes, and added some color. And so that's what you see here. So I'm going to go through this first and kind of, just explain the big picture, and then I'm going to go to the individual inserts and show you how they fit into this. So first, where you start is in this circle here, and this is the capturing part of the GTD system. That's where you take all of the stuff that's in your head, all the tasks, ideas, projects, information, etc., and you put it into an inbox, or what David Allen calls an in-basket. This is kind of a catch-all where you write down all of that free-floating information. You don't worry about putting it in any kind of particular order in the inbox phase. The point here is just to get it out of your head and onto paper. And it's best if you process the inbox daily. So like for me, at the end of each day, I'll sit down and go through and process that. The first thing you need to decide about any item in your inbox, is it actionable? And that means, is it something that you need to do something about? So then you need to decide, is this thing that needs action, is it just going to take one step to complete, or is it going to take more than one step? If it's going to take more than one step, then you're going to create a project out of it, and that's like a multi-step project. If it's just one step, if it takes less than 2 minutes, you're just going to do it now, because that will be more efficient than taking the time to file it away on the right list and everything. Just do it now. If it's one step and it's going to take more than 2 minutes, then you'll have to decide if you want to delegate it to someone else, or to defer it to a later time. So if you delegate it, then it will go on your waiting on list, and this is for someone else to do. If you're going to defer it, meaning not do it right now, it's going to either go on your calendar, you're going to schedule it, or it's going to go on the next list or the next actions list. The next actions list, those are tasks that are meant to be done as soon as possible, but they don't have to be done on a specific day. If you have a task that has to be done on a specific day, then you would just go ahead and write it on your calendar. All right. Now, if you have items that are not actionable, that do not need action, maybe this is something that doesn't need to be done right now, it's going to go one of three places. It's either going to just be crossed out and be trashed, like if it's something that you decide you don't need to remember. After all, it's not worth taking up space in your brain or in your planner. Or if it's something you're not going to get to right away, it can go on your someday list. David Allen calls this the someday maybe list. And this is a place where you can hold whatever that is for review later. And then the third place that it could go is in a reference file or a reference section. So this is information that you would need to retrieve when required, like a phone number that you would need to remember later, and put it in the reference section of my planner. All right, so now let's kind of go through and flesh this out and show you how my inserts work with this and specific examples. Now, all of the circles that are in the pink color here correspond to inserts that I have in my shop. Now, schedule, there's not an insert called schedule. I have like a daily insert, an undated daily, I have an undated monthly, I have a monthly log. So this schedule here represents multiple inserts. So first, let's look at the inbox insert. So this is where you are recording all of your ideas, tasks, projects, etc. I'm sorry that mine looks a little bit messy here. This is the one that I'm currently using right now. I had some sensitive information here, so I had to put a sticky note over it. And the gray highlighter represents things in my inbox that I've already processed. The columns over here are subdivided into action needed and no action needed. It lets you categorize whatever the item is easily, because you already have the overarching categories up here for you. So for instance, I had the thought today, hey, I need to buy new diapers for my 5-month-old. So as opposed to taking time to figure out what list I needed to put that on, should I put it on my calendar to get done today? Should I put it on my next list? Instead of taking the time when I had the thought and I'm in the middle of something to figure out where it needs to go, I just write it on this list. Then at the end of the day, or whenever you process the items in your inbox, then you can go and mark off which category it's going to need to go in. So, let's say by the end of the day, I had already acquired some diapers. Like maybe my husband had also had the same idea and picked them up at the store. And so now I didn't need to buy diapers anymore. Well, then it would go in the trash and I could just cross it off without categorizing it at all. Otherwise, I might decide that it needs to go on my next actions list. So that's this first column here. So then I would just put a dot right here in this list and put it on my next actions list. Alternately, if I put it on here and then I realized, oh, hey, I forgot I have an Amazon order of diapers coming and I don't need to buy diapers right away, then I might want to put it on my Sunday list, which is this column here, so that, I don't forget about it, but it's there for later because I don't need to take care of that right now. Another thing that I could do, maybe I've already decided I'm going to go to the grocery store tomorrow or make a grocery order tomorrow. If I know the specific day that it needs to be done on, if I know that I'm getting groceries tomorrow, then I might just go ahead and put it on my schedule, which is this column here on my calendar. So like I would put it on my daily page for tomorrow, and then I could just put it in this column. And then once I have processed everything at the end of the day, then I just cross it off. Now you don't need to do that if you don't want to. I just find that visually it really helps me to ignore that better if it's crossed off in dark gray highlighter next time, so I'm not like spinning my wheels trying to process something that I've already processed. Now let's talk about the next action list. So this is my current next action list. I actually have two. I have one for work and one for everything else. But there is a column for work on here, so you could certainly keep all of your work stuff on here if you wanted to. So these are just all of the items that are actionable, that need to be done as soon as possible, but don't necessarily have a specific day that they need to be done. Now, where my system differs a little bit from David Allen's is I have, at least in the larger sizes in my shop, I think with some of the smaller sizes, I didn't have room to put this due column, but in the larger sizes, there's this due column here, due like D-U-E, and that's something that I know has to be done by a specific date, but it doesn't necessarily have to be done on a specific date. So let me give you an example. I had ordered some work clothes through Amazon Prime Wardrobe, and when they send you, if you've ever used Prime Wardrobe before, which I highly recommend, they send you the clothes and you usually have a week and before you have to decide what you want to buy and when you have to ship it back. So I have a definite due date of when the Prime Wardrobe order needs to be shipped back. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be shipping it back on that day. So that's why I didn't just automatically put this on my calendar. I put it on my next actions list because it could be done. If I got this on September 2nd, I could be shipping this back September 3rd or 4th or 5th. So if I wait until the 9th to even look at this, like once I had this thought, I'd put it on my calendar instead of my next actions list, and I put it on my calendar on the 9th, then I wouldn't like that because I'd be feeling really rushed, and now I ended up waiting until the last day anyway. But ideally I wouldn't, right? So that's why I added this due column here, because I think it's nice to be able to see when something is due, but still keeping it on your next actions list. David Allen uses what he calls tickler files for this, and I think the concept of those tickler files is he has one for like each day, and so if he has something that he thinks he might want to get done on that day, he can go look in the file. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that's how that works, but this is just a lot easier for me to manage than doing that. So the other categories here, these are the ones that David Allen suggests are the most common. So you have a column for whatever it is can be done anywhere. So maybe that's something you can do on your phone. Home for things that have to be done at home. Work for things that have to be done at work. Now, like I said, I recently have created like a whole separate next actions list for work. So I'm not really using this column right now, but you certainly can. Errands would be anything you have to be leaving the house to do. Planner would be something you need your planner for. Computer is something that you could do anytime you're, at your laptop or computer. Contact, when you need to call somebody, email somebody, text somebody. And then review, David Allen calls this read and review. This is like if you have information that you need to sort through or read through or anything like that. So let's just kind of go through some of these and I'll tell you how I categorize them. So this first one here, photograph, cloth, and paper items. So I have a problem. I have amassed all kinds of cloth and paper stuff from subscription boxes that I am not using and need to get rid of. It's beautiful, but we can't use it all. So I put a P here, which stands for project, and I'll get to the projects page in a minute, but this P means that this action step here is part of a larger project. And so I just kind of put the P there to designate that so that I don't forget about that, because once I finish photographing the cloth and paper stuff, then there's another action in that project that I'll need to add to the next action list. So that's why I have that P there. Now, when I'm photographing my cloth and paper stuff, I said that needs to be done at home because that's where I have all of my stuff stored. Let's see, something else on here. Okay, so read about taxes on Etsy. That is something that can be done anywhere, because when I read about it, I'm going to do it on my phone. And I also categorized it under the review column here because it's reading and reviewing something. Here, the writing out morning and evening routines, I put an asterisk next to, which to me signifies that this is something that is a priority and that I want to get done. All of this stuff is stuff that needs to be done as soon as possible, but this is something that I want to prioritize even among those things. Let's see, other things. So here's a couple other P's for projects. I talked about using the do column here. So instead of reading through each of these items every time you look at this list, all you need to do is go to the column that matches the context that you're currently in. So let's say you're at home, you have some extra time, and you want to knock out some things on your next action list. You just go to the home column here, ignore everything else, just look at the home column, and then you can easily see, which items it is that need to be done at home. Photographing my cloth and paper items, descaling my coffee pot with vinegar, prepping for my GTD video, giving my dogs their flea and tick treatment, and printing planner inserts, So that's where these columns are really, really helpful. And it makes it so you don't constantly have to be rewriting all of this information onto separate categorized lists, because these are your categories and they're easy to process. All right, so now let's look at the waiting on list. All right, so this is a place where you can keep track of things that you have delegated to other people, or let's say, you're communicating with a customer service rep back and forth, and you've emailed them and you're waiting for an email back. This is a place where you can record that so you don't forget about it, but it shouldn't go on your next actions list if you're not the one that has to be doing the next action. So a lot of this list for me turns out to be like a honey-do list for my husband. I also have on here, like I said, this is stuff I've already done that's grayed out, but I had to contact Gilio customer service and I was waiting on them to respond to an email. My husband, I had him shipping an Amazon return for me, etc. So I just write things here that I want to keep track of, but that I am not directly responsible for completing. Now let's look at the someday list. So this is also known as the someday maybe list, and these are things that I add to when it's not something that needs to be done right away, but it's information I don't want to forget about. Or maybe it's something that I'm not even sure that I am going to do, but again, I don't want to lose the information, and I want to close that open loop of having it floating around in my mind, taking up mental energy. So I would put it here on the someday list. And some of the things I have on here, like this one, I need to migrate because I want to seal my granite this month in September. But I wrote this down in August, and I knew I didn't want to do it in August. So I put it on the Sunday list. But now that it's September, there's the column here that if you know when you want to do it, you can write it down. Then I would need to mark that I'm migrating this in my status column, which I kind of use bullet journal symbols for that. And then I would write it on my next actions list. I'm not going to take the time to do that right now. So, but these, other things on here are things that I don't even necessarily have a time for, and that's okay. This is just kind of a list where you can store this stuff to review later. All right, and next I have my project list. So I have a couple different project lists up in my shop. This is the what's called the simple project list in my shop, and it is literally just a simple list of the projects that you have. David Allen recommends doing this because not all of your project reference material, like all your project planning, is necessarily going to be in the same place. So this allows you to have an easy way to know exactly what projects you have going on right now, so none of them fall through the cracks. And like what I've done is I've even kept track of different projects lists that I have on here. So this is the simple project list. This is the other one I have in my shop, which is the, you could use this for long projects. I usually use this for short projects because it gives you the ability to write down the name of the overall project here on the left side, and then on the right side, you can break it down into action steps. And it gives you, so like if you had a due date for the big project, you could record that here on this line, but it also gives you a spot to record the due dates for the individual tasks, the action steps that make up that project, if you choose to do that. And again, I just grade these things out when I'm done with them, so they're not distracting me when I'm looking at this list. So that's the projects list. The other thing that I want to talk about is the talking points list. David Allen calls this the agenda list, and I had to use a sticky note here because again I had sensitive information, but you can use this list in a number of different ways. You can either write somebody that you communicate with a lot, say like your boss or something. You could write their name in the header box up here, and then just keep track of all the things that you have to talk to them about. So maybe if things come up in your head throughout the day that you need to discuss with your boss, as opposed to like popping in their office every 5 minutes with something new and interrupting them, you can write it down on this list and then go catch them at a time that's convenient for both of you, and just kind of knock out the questions or items that you have to discuss. So you can write down the date here, the topic to discuss, and then the response. And then there's a check mark column too so that you can keep track of what you've already discussed. Now, this one that I have here is set up for miscellaneous information. So like I had gotten this new insurance card and I needed to verify my coverage. Well, I hadn't gotten the insurance card yet. I had the insurance coverage. I had not gotten the card, so I wanted to verify that it was active. And so I called them and they gave me my group number and my member ID number. And so I wrote those numbers down here. This is just a spot to keep track of that stuff. And then, other phone calls or other miscellaneous communications that I have, I'm just going to keep on this one list so I don't have to keep a million different lists for stuff like that, because I'm probably not going to be calling the medical mutual people back anytime soon. So that is the talking points list. One more thing I wanted to add. It's really important when you are doing the GTD system that you are reviewing your lists regularly, because it doesn't do you any good if you're writing this stuff down and you're not looking at it ever again. So you need to have a system in place to go through and review the information. And for me, the inbox, I always go through and review at the end of every day. The next actions list, again, I'm looking at least once a day. I mean, usually I'll look at it throughout the day if I have some extra time, but I'll look at this every night, and if there's something that I've done that I didn't check off, I'll make sure it's checked off, and I'll make sure anything from my inbox that needs to be migrated here to my next actions will go on there. And then I review the other lists weekly pretty much. So like the someday list and the projects lists, and not just the project list, but like each of my projects that I have going on, I will review too. Now, if there's a project that I'm not working on right now, then I'll put it in my someday section as opposed to my projects section, so that I'm not reviewing that every week, even though I'm not actively working on it. But otherwise, I'll go through and review that weekly. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure to add that, because if you're not reviewing the information, you're going to lose confidence in it, and then you're not really doing anything to close those open loops in your head of all that information up there that you're spending so much mental energy on. So make sure to review. So here's my other getting things done dashboard on the other side of the page. But anyway, that is everything that I am going to talk about in this video today, because I don't want it to get too long. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the Getting Things Done system and how my PerfectionismPrints planner inserts work with that. And like I said, I am not a GTD purist. I'm sure that there are things that I'm doing differently than what David Allen recommends. This is just what's working for me right now. And I'd love to hear feedback. I'd love to hear if you're using GTD and how it's working for you, and if you've made any modifications, what those are. I'd love to hear if you are using my inserts and how they're working for you. I'm always open to feedback. And I'm just so appreciative that my shop has taken off, and that people have told me that they're really getting a lot of use out of these GTD inserts. I couldn't ask for anything more than that. That's the whole reason why I opened my shop. And I'm just so thankful for each and every one of you that have supported me, and each and every one of you that are watching this video, because I know I've been rambling on for a long time. Please let me know if you have any questions about GTD, about my shop, about mental health, and I will be happy to answer them. And I have future videos planned to make as well, and hopefully that perfectionism bug will not bite me, where I will actually be able to get them done. All right, so that's all for today, guys. Bye-bye.